You stay professional, you stay persistent, and you never act like you're owed a response. That's key. It's not on paper, it's not in your head. You're doing this out loud. It's enough confidence to take action and enough feedback to get better fast. You are showing up before the problem. That makes you elite. At some point, it's going to come down to it, and the guy with the best attitude, he's the one that gets to keep his job.
Welcome to Get Your Mind Right. Today, we're diving into your questions and insights in our mailbag segment. Thanks to everyone who wrote in. Let's open up the mailbag.
Good morning, John Johnson here, and welcome to Get Your Mind Right Mailbag Edition. Well, today, we're going to get in the weeds, and I'm here to tell you that's a good thing, because this isn't surface level stuff. These are questions that force us to slow down, take a step back, and recalibrate how we think about performance, development, and client success. Here's what we're covering. We're going to talk about what to do when hot leads go cold. And we're going to start talking about and thinking about if I think I'm trained enough to actually start selling a specific product. And the last thing is, we're going to get down to the merchant's level and show ways that we can increase volume from existing merchants without upselling them. That's an interesting one. And today's backstory, well, this is a favorite. I'm going to take you back to a lesson from my dad that is absolutely tattooed in my memory. It involves losing your job, a little bit of politics, and a whole big dose of truth on why your likability might be the one thing that keeps you in the building when the budgets get tight. Well, let's get into it. First question today is from Bob Jones from Gilroy, California. And Bob says, John, when a hot lead goes cold, what is your play? Well, Bob, the answer to this one is simple. Now, it's not easy and it's not always fun, but it's simple. You stay professional, you stay persistent, and you never ever act like you are owed a response. Because Bob, that moment you come off entitled, you already lost. Now, here's your three-part framework. The first thing is send a light nudge, but make it non-needy. Here's an example. Jim, I'm just circling back with you. Totally understand if timing is shifted or if your priorities have changed. If now's not the right time, just let me know and I'll step back. No pressure either way. Now that message says I'm here, I'm professional, and I'm not desperate. Now another thing, Bob, I want to point out here is what I'm doing here is I'm making this about Jim. When I call and I say just following up, just seeing where you are, it's all about me. It's not about my client here. Bob, the next thing I want you to do is to shift into value mode and stay in value mode. 3 or 5 days later after your first follow-up on here, send a resource, an article, a Loom video, or even a market update relevant to the world. This is not a sales pitch. This is a point of value. You might preface it by saying, hey Jim, I saw this breakdown on dual pricing stats across retail. Reminded me of our conversation. Let me know if it's helpful. You're showing up to serve, not to sell here. Now, next thing here, and this is tough for a lot of sales rep, is the breakup close. After you've made several follow-ups over a period of time and you're getting no response, you might say, hey Jim, sounds like right now might not be the right time for you. No worries. I'm going to close the file out on my end, but if it ever becomes a priority again, I'm only one message away. Now, this is very important here, Bob, because what this does is it resets the power dynamic. You're staying in control and you're not begging. And here's the truth. Sometimes, in fact, that prospect will circle back after you walk away. But even if they don't, well, you showed up like a pro. And that reputation is always going to pay off. Maybe not now, but eventually. Plus your mandate, as my listeners to the show know, a top professional is always a top professional. Thanks for the question, Bob. Now, another question from a regular contributor to the show, and that is Dawson Dimmitt from Boonville, Indiana. And Dawson says, John, how do I know I've had enough training to start selling? And what kind of training should my mentor be giving me? Oh, well, Dawson, I absolutely love this question because some reps hide behind more training as a way to avoid the discomfort of actually hitting the field. But others, they get thrown out there with no plan, no tools, and zero clue. And then they wonder why they flame out. I'm here to tell you when you know that you are ready. And the first thing is when you can clearly articulate what you do, who it's for, and why it matters. Now, this is not to read it. This is not to commit it to rote memory, not to recite it, but to communicate it. When you could give me a 60-second version of your value proposition with confidence and clarity, then I'm going to say you're ready to start testing your message out in the wild. Now, the next thing, Dawson, is really, really important, is whatever it is that you're selling, whatever service or product, whatever field for that matter, is that you can handle the top 5 objections you're going to experience out loud. This out loud part is key. It's not on paper, not in your head, it's out loud. Okay. Dawson, you've practiced these responses until they feel like second nature. Now, you're not always going to say them perfectly, but you're not going to panic when you hear them. I am always amazed at how this works for me. I will write things down. I give a lot of speeches and a lot of huddles on different topics. And it just never ceases to amaze me that when I say these things out loud, how different they sound versus me writing them on paper. It's extremely important, and you get a lot sharper by doing it. Now, next thing I want you to do, Dawson, is to be very clear on your numbers. What's your daily input goal? How many convos are you aiming for? How many appointments have you booked and they equal a win? This way you're not walking in blind. You got a game plan. Now, as for what your manager or mentor should be giving you, well, they should be giving you real-world call practice. They should be giving you role play with feedback. They should be giving you situational coaching. When you come to them with a particular circumstance that you encounter, they're telling you what to do or how to act, how to behave when those things happen. And on top of that, they should be working with you on your daily structure and weekly reviews. Now, if they're just throwing you in and saying, go get them, you're not being trained. You're getting tossed. Dawson, your goal here is not perfect knowledge. It's enough confidence to take action and enough feedback to get better fast. Thanks for the question, Dawson. Now go get after it. Now, today's last question is from Sheila Wyatt from Atlanta, Georgia. And Sheila asks, John, are there any previous programs you've been involved with to implement and increase the volume of existing merchants through general operational tips, without turning me into a consultant or trying to upsell them on other products? Well, Sheila, I love the intent behind your question here because I believe what you're doing is you're asking how to help existing clients do better without necessarily asking them to buy more. Now, that's the mark of great long-term thinking and also creating a churn-proof base. So there's things I've seen work in the field that don't require you to become their marketing director. Here's a couple of them. First thing is transaction routing education. Because what I find is most merchants don't understand how their terminals route credit versus debit. How that PIN debit can dramatically drop their effective rates. You can walk them through this on how to ask for a PIN and how to steer payments correctly. Now, that's savings and that's meaningful and that's value to your client without any kind of upsell required. Another thing I find important is pricing clarity for your merchant staff. For example, if that business is doing dual pricing or cash discounting, but the staff isn't explaining well, it's going to create friction, churn, and lost sales among their customers. So what you want to do is coach the owner to train the team. You accomplish this with simple scripts, clear signage, proper receipts, and that one conversation can change everything for the better for your merchant. I also like seasonal prep strategies, and this involves you reaching out before the seasonal spike. You might say, hey Jim, I know the spring is huge for you. Hey, how about a 10-minute session on an operational checklist just to make sure everything's dialed in before things get crazy? This way, Sheila, you're showing up before the problem, and that makes you elite. I also always love check-in reports, okay? I've seen reps have great success with a simple 3-question email check-in. What's working well with your system right now? Any hiccups we can solve before your busy season? Anything coming up this quarter I should know about in advance? Now, what you're not doing here is consulting. You're caring. You're showing great stewardship. And Sheila, that plays with every merchant. Sheila, what you're going to find is your biggest lever isn't product, it is proactive support. Help them run smoother, not just spend more, and you're going to find you're going to keep them longer. Great question. And now, the backstory. Welcome to the backstory, where I take a step back before we move forward. Each week, I share moments that shape me, whether it's my time as a sales rep, my journey as a dad, experiences I had, stories I've learned, or the curiosity that's followed me since childhood. Because every lesson learned today, well, there's usually a story worth telling behind it. Today's backstory is titled Layoffs, Loyalty, and the Daddy Pulpit. Now, for y'all know that what I'm talking about when I say daddy pulpit, there are some things that your parents say that float right past you. And then they're the ones that sit in your chest for the rest of your life. And that's what the daddy pulpit's all about. Now, my dad, he didn't have a microphone or a stage, but he had something better than that, and it was conviction. And what Dad lacked up in volume, he made up for with that conviction and that precision. When Dad was standing at the daddy pulpit, trust me, you listened. Now, here's what he didn't do. He didn't ramble, but he delivered what I will call mini sermons, okay? These things were short, they were sharp, they definitely were pointy, and they stuck to you. Now, over the years, my dad had some really good ones. But one of his most memorable is he told me, John, one day you're going to work for a company and there's going to be a layoff or slowdown or budget cuts. And when that moment comes, your boss may not keep the best worker. He's going to keep the one that he likes the most. Now, I'm going to let that set for a second here, because here's what Dad was not talking about. He's not talking about brown nosing, and he wasn't talking about charm. What he was talking about was attitude and about consistency, about the kind of people that can be trusted under pressure, okay? People that show up every day on time, that typically says yes to what their boss asks of them and then actually does it. Now, what's wild is that my dad, my sister, and I all came of age under the same kind of economy. Now, my parents were very young when my sister and I were born, but at the same time, these were different decades, but it was the same kind of desperation. When I got out of college, my sister for that matter too, and my dad, markets were very, very tight in the Midwest. In those days, it wasn't about chasing perks or bonuses or upsides. It's about just trying to find a seat somewhere, just someone willing to take a chance on you. This wasn't easy. The playbook was to get a job, work hard, keep the job, and hopefully good things are going to happen to you. That was the formula. But the variable that mattered most was how you showed up when no one was watching. Dad used to say, at some point, it's going to come down to it, and the guy with the best attitude gets to keep his job. And that stuck with me. And when I stepped into sales leadership for the first time, I started really seeing it everywhere. You got 2 reps and you got equal talent, okay? One's always early, one's always prepared, always coachable, always a good attitude. The other one might actually be a brilliant rep, but moody, okay? Sharp, but inconsistent. Could be dynamic, but maybe not such a great work ethic. Sometimes could even be a prima donna. Well, guess what? Which one gets the nod when a territory gets cut? Or a perk happens to come out and I'm in the position to dole that perk out. Well, people love to talk about performance, but when leadership has to decide who stays or who gets this benefit, they silently ask themselves, who do I trust? Who's not going to crack if things go bad here? Who makes this team better just by being here? Now, this has nothing to do with quotas. It has everything to do with presence. And I still tell people this today. Don't just study your comp plan. Study your character. Study how you behave and how you act when no one's watching. Because when things tighten up, the people who make it through, they're not just talented, they're liked. And they're liked because they're consistent, because they're reliable, and they're the ones that no one wants to imagine the room without. Dad didn't need charts or case studies, and he never ever quoted books to me. He just looked at you with great conviction and told you what was what. And now, years later, I find myself repeating those same truths to the next generation. Very different industry, very different times, very different possibilities and outcomes, but it is the exact same wisdom. Because, losing your job and layoffs are not just about numbers. They're about decisions. And if you want to stay standing while the dust settles, you want to be the one that company cannot afford to lose. That's the backstory, and that's also a tip of the hat to my dad for imparting wisdom on me that I'll never forget. Let's recap today's episode. Bob learned how to re-engage ghosting prospects without getting weird or needy. And Dawson gave us a simple checklist for knowing when it's time to stop training and to start selling, and what your mentor should really be giving you. Sheila found 4 field-tested tactics for growing merchant volume without pitching more products. And in the backstory, we and I got a reminder from my dad that skills can get you hired, but how you show up every day, what your attitude is every day, that's what keeps you around when things get tight. Hey, it's quiz time. Which of the following is not a smart tactic when a lead goes silent? Is it A, follow up with value? B, ask if now's a better time? Or C, send a breakup message after a few tries? Or finally D, keep messaging them every 48 hours until they respond? Drop your answer in the comments below and tell me why. And hey, share this with someone who you think would appreciate it. And I'd also ask you to like it and smash that subscribe button. If you got questions or comments, I'd love to hear them. I'll see you back here on Wednesday for Get Your Mind Right.